Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. It's been a hot minute, hasn't it? It's been a hot second since we spoke about some Impact Wrestling here on the channel. We try and do the daily Impact Wrestling news videos here, but with everything that was going on last week, with just the craziness in All Elite Wrestling, All Out, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, CM Punk, Ruby Soho, all the kind of stuff, and with WWE as well. It's been a crazy 7 days or so, but we are back talking about some Impact Wrestling as well. Obviously, I do like to do my daily Impact Wrestling news videos. So here we are talking about Impact Wrestling once again. We've got a few Impact Wrestling news stories that I do want to talk on today. One being the Impact Wrestling ratings from last week. And I feel like we're always talking about this at the moment, but it is still a really big topic, I think, especially to Impact Wrestling fans. And how do they try and improve the ratings? How do they get back to where they were earlier this year? And ultimately, what's the long-term goal for Impact Wrestling, for viewership, for their television program, for their network, social media, all that kind of stuff? It's a really interesting time when it comes to Impact Wrestling from that point of view. So the good thing when it comes to Impact Wrestling, of course, is that Impact Wrestling viewership is up from last week with the Tommy Dreamer and Ace Austin main event that we saw last Thursday. Now, Thursday's new edition of Impact Wrestling drew 126,000 viewers on Access TV, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. Now, this is up over 28% from last week's, or the previous week rather, 98,000 viewers, which was the second lowest audience of the year. Now, obviously, you're going to look at that, you're going to go, wow, up over 28%, that's incredible. And it is. It's up significantly. That's a significant jump, and it's obviously very positive for Impact Wrestling. Of course, when you're talking about numbers that are ultimately, let's be honest here, this low, when you're talking about an audience of 126,000 viewers in comparison to 98,000 viewers, when we're talking like going up by nearly 30,000 viewers, it can cause it looks like the ratings skyrocketed. In reality, 30,000 viewers to other companies is nothing. So I think we have to be realistic still here, but you have to look at these things in context, and Impact Wrestling will be back, happy to be back rather, they're over 100,000 viewers once again. Now, Thursday's episode drew a 0.04 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic. This is also up over 33% from last week's 0.03 key demo rating. Impact Wrestling ranked 129 in the Cable Top 150 for the key demo. Last week's show did not even make the Cable Top 150, but the show before that ranked 122nd. This week's Impact, or last week's Impact, it's just how crazy the time's been, but this week's Impact ranked 139 for the night on cable in viewership. The previous show did not rank, but the episode before that ranked 133rd in viewership for the night. Now, the Impact Wrestling episode from last week was tied with the August 19 episode, but up from what that show has been doing this summer. The summer's been tough, very, very tough for Impact Wrestling when it comes to the ratings and it comes to the viewership. The key demo rating was in line with recent episodes. As I mentioned, viewership was up over 28%. The key demo was up over 33%. Impact viewership for Thursday was actually up 23.5% from the same week in 2020, which you would be saying, great. Up 23.5%. Massive thumbs up year on year, especially in pro wrestling or just television in general. Television goes down on year, so up 23.5%. Thumbs up, absolutely tick. Well, to add context to that, the 2020 episode was an all-time low for Impact Wrestling on Access TV with only 78,000 viewers tuning in. Why? Because that's the Tuesday, or one of the Tuesdays, that they actually went head-to-head with NXT. I think it was the first time they went head-to-head with NXT, and you had that special NXT Super Tuesday episode. So that's really what we're looking at. The reason that it's up 23.5% is because this time last year, it was the all-time low for Impact Wrestling. So they had to be better in reality. Let's be honest here, actually. The fact that this time last year was the all-time record low for Impact on Access TV, the fact that a year later you're only up 23.5%, I think it's relatively alarming, to be honest with you. Still relatively alarming. Now, Thursday's taped edition of Impact Wrestling featured several happenings advertised way ahead of time. This included Josh Alexander's X Division Championship Open Challenge, The Influence, as they're calling themselves, Madison Rayne, Tenille Dashwood, and Caleb with a K versus Taylor Wilde, Jordan Grace, and Rachel Ellering. You had Rohit Raju and Shira versus Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green. You had Decay versus Falabar and No Way. Ace Austin versus Tommy Dreamer, of course, which was the main event as well. So obviously they'll be happy that it rose from the previous week. But as I mentioned in that report, it's been a really tough summer. Really tough summer for Impact Wrestling in terms of viewership and ratings, which is kind of strange when you look look at it, this is why Impact Wrestling is such a fascinating topic. This is why we cover all the news in Impact Wrestling, because they've had such an interesting past couple of years, especially obviously in the last sort of 12 months or so, as we're nearly getting on to about a year since the working relationship with AEW first began. Of course, that began in early December last year, so only a couple of months away from that, which is crazy to think about too. Since then, when they first had that working relationship with AEW, obviously the ratings were excellent for Impact Wrestling on Access TV. The ratings were good. If you go back to earlier this year, we're talking January, Feb, they were bringing in over 180,000, 170s, again, high 170s, 180s after No Surrender in February. And this is around the time of, a lot of stuff going on, obviously, with sort of, the political world, shall we say, earlier on in the year. I mean, the post No Surrender episode drew 197,000 viewers on Access TV with a 0.06 rating. That's very, very, very strong for Impact, and they would have been very, very happy with that. Of course, last year, after you had that first announcement that Kenny Omega was coming to Impact Wrestling, you had the one that was over 200,000, 224 or something like that, I think it was. Again, very, very strong. A record for Impact Wrestling on Access TV. But I think what was interesting about that Kenny Omega first debut episode is it basically showed to you where the ceiling is for Impact, where they're just not going to get any higher, let's face it. And that is at that high 200,000 or sort of mid 200,000 range or low 200,000 range. 200, 220, 240 in terms of thousands, that's the highest they're going to get. And I think that's the answer to a lot of people going, why isn't this show drawing more? Look at the talent that they have. Look at the names that have been on Impact Wrestling recently, whether it is Kenny Omega, whether it is Jay White, whether it is Christian Cage, whether it's Mickie James, whether it's any of these big names that have appeared on Impact Wrestling recently. Why aren't the ratings higher? And the answer is because they can't go higher. That's the issue. And when you can't go higher, Impact Wrestling is trying to find their best way of trying to find some momentum, right? They're trying to find some momentum. They're trying to find something that can keep generating buzz so that on social media, they can generate the views there. I think that's kind of the mentality when it comes to Impact Wrestling now is, okay, we know the network we're on. We know it's Access TV. Of course, we're never going to leave Access in terms of we're never going to get kicked off of it because Anthem owns Access and they own Impact Wrestling. So we're kind of safe in that sense, but we know our ceiling. It's going to be the low 200,000s. That's the highest we can go in terms of rating. So what else can we do? What else can we do to get eyeballs on the product? We can do it through social. We can do it through social media. We can do it through collaborations with other promotions. We can do it with the new YouTube process that they're doing where you can be a member of the show and watch it even before I think it makes the air, stuff like that. That's kind of their model now. That's what they're aiming towards. The issue is that yes, while they still do have buzz, I guess, on social media, this story keeps coming out every week, and that kind of negates a lot of the buzz that they have. And when they'll say, and it hurts their leverage, certainly when it comes to people like Impact, to AEW rather, when they'll say, yes, we've got a great company, we've got a great roster, but everyone will point to you, but nobody's really watching the product in terms of television. And don't get me wrong, I understand nowadays television ratings aren't everything, and I've mentioned several times here on the channel, they only show a snapshot of the picture, not the whole frame, if you will, and that's totally true. There are other metrics to take into account nowadays, whether it is Instagram follows, whether it is Twitter likes, whether it is YouTube views, whether it's whatever, Twitch streams, which they don't do anymore. All that kind of stuff does play into it, but still every single week I feel like we're talking about this when we're going, the numbers still aren't great what they were. And it does feel like at the moment that whilst Impact might have a bit of momentum in terms of they've still got Christian Cage as their champion, all that kind of stuff, it does kind of feel like, well, the momentum's fine, but they're stuck. Ultimately, they're stuck to a point because they can only progress so far while they're on Access TV. Now, do I think they're going to move and switch to another network anytime soon? The answer is probably no. I think the positive thing they do have at their disposal right now is the success of AEW. And what I mean by the success of AEW is going to be really important to Impact Wrestling is that other television networks now are going to see the success of AEW and they're going to go, wait a minute, wrestling outside of WWE is a valuable and viable commodity once again. Wrestling outside of WWE can draw again because WWE for years has kind of tricked Hollywood and network executives and advertising executives that the only place that wrestling is popular is WWE. Otherwise, it can't draw, or otherwise, it can't draw big ratings. Otherwise, it can't draw sellout arenas and all that kind of stuff. The fact that AEW is now starting to be such a success and starting to draw viewership and starting to make so much buzz on social media, all of these television networks and advertising executives are now looking at Impact and going, wait a minute, maybe we should take a chance. Maybe if we sort of invest in this company, maybe if we put them on a network that isn't going to be as big as a TNT or a TBS or a USA Network or Fox or anything like that, but if we put them on a cable network that more people have, why not? Why not? Pro wrestling's popular once again. Pro wrestling's drawing once again. And I think that's maybe what Impact Wrestling has to look at if they really want to start driving up ratings. Otherwise, they're stuck to social. They're stuck to social media. They're stuck to Access TV, which will always get, again, between 100 to 200,000 at best, most likely, 150, 140, 130, 120. And that's about it. And they're going to be stuck, irrespective of whoever they put on that show. That's it. That's the ceiling. That's what they're stuck to. And that's it at the end of the day. So we'll talk about it, obviously, once the ratings for this coming Thursday shows come out, but I think it's always interesting to take that into account. Of course, we also saw Jake Crist return to Impact Wrestling. Former Impact Wrestling X Division and World Tag Team Champion Jake Crist returned to Impact Wrestling on last Thursday's episode. Following his retaining victory over Jake Something, Josh Alexander issued an open challenge match for the X Division Championship, to which Crist accepted. Although Crist lost the challenge, the fans were happy to see the former OVE members come back. Crist's last appearance on Impact came in June of 2020 in a television match against Crazy Steve. He announced that his contract with Impact Wrestling expired on New Year's Day of this year. Now, Fightful Select has also issued an update when it comes to Jake Crist's future with Impact Wrestling. This is what the report had to say. It said, quote, Jake Crist appeared on Impact Wrestling again after spending several months away from the company. Crist has dropped a ton of weight since last year and has worked on his physical conditioning, as well as getting another look by Impact after the two parted ways last December. We've been told that Crist was well-liked within the company, and we had several sources within the company specifically mention his creative mind as one of the potential benefits of him being back around the company. As of the appearance on Impact Wrestling last week, Crist remained a free agent and is not signed by Impact. Now, what's interesting about that, of course, first of all, you can tell right there, he does look to be in real phenomenal shape. I think that's super impressive, and you have to give him credit for that. I know a lot of people did like him, but obviously he's had a bit of a physical transformation, so huge credit to him for getting in absolutely phenomenal shape. And stuff like that makes people pay attention. Maybe it's a case of Impact going, you know what, maybe he does deserve another chance. Maybe he does deserve another go. He's dedicated himself. He looks like he's got himself completely ready. And again, that means something even today, because it shows dedication and it shows a desire to work at your craft. And I think that's incredibly impressive. I thought he looked great in his match against Josh Alexander. Would he be a useful addition to the roster? Why not? Just because he hasn't been signed by Impact Wrestling right now, I always say this doesn't necessarily mean all that much, because we know how Impact Wrestling operates when it comes to contracts. We know when it comes to Impact Wrestling that they'll happily have you work without a contract for months on an end, because they're more than happy to be flexible when it comes to what you're looking for out of your contract with a pro wrestling company. They're more than happy to say, you know what, if you don't want to commit to a deal that's however many dates a month, that's fine. If you don't want to commit to a contract that's going to be 3 or 4 months, if you don't want to commit to something that's the end of the year, that's completely up to you. We'll work on a handshake deal, or we'll work for a paid per appearance deal right now, or we'll take our time. We'll see if this fits. We'll see if this works. And I think that's probably going to be the case with Jake Crist going forward. Again, I don't know that to be completely accurate. I'm not a scoopster. I'm just someone sharing my opinion here. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if we see Jake Crist come back and we hear a story that comes out where it basically says, you know, we haven't worked it out, but we're talking, and maybe something will happen, maybe something doesn't. I'm just enjoying myself right now. I'm on a handshake deal. I'm on a per appearance deal. Can we figure something out? Time will only tell. I think we'll probably see something like that. Again, I think Impact really does appreciate how hard he's worked to get in better shape. I think they do appreciate his mind for the business, and obviously he's well liked within the promotion, and that does count for a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does stick around for a little bit longer, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, I think something will probably come out about that in the next couple of weeks or so. Some things that have been announced for this week's episode of Impact Wrestling include a Bunkhouse Brawl. A Bunkhouse Brawl has been announced for this week's Impact. The match will see Rich Swann take on Impact World Tag Team Champion Carl Anderson. The Good Brothers, of course, have been feuding with Swann and Willie Mack as of late. Of course, the Good Brothers have been very busy. They were at All Out on Sunday, part of that massive post-match main event match segment that involved Adam Cole signing with AEW and showing up, also Bryan Danielson showing up. So they're very busy at the moment. I think it's really interesting about the Good Brothers because we know, of course, their contract expires in July of next year. To be honest with you, and I might be wrong here, I would be really, really, really surprised if they re-signed with Impact. Really surprised. I'm not saying that they'll disappear from Impact Wrestling Television by any stretch of the imagination, but I certainly could see a scenario, certainly could see a situation, shall we say, where they work out a different kind of deal with Impact, whereby at the moment, I think Impact has priority over their booking, so they have to be available by these dates. They have to be available for every taping, and then because Impact, of course, only tapes, 3-4 days a month, then they can do AEW, then they can do New Japan, they can do whatever they want, they can do indie dates, they can do whatever. I don't know if they'll continue to work out that deal. I think AEW suddenly might take the priority over their deals, but then allow them to work for Impact. I don't know what the situation may be, but I think that will probably change. But that's still a long way off. That's still just under a year away at this point, so I don't think anything like that. When it comes to the Bunkhouse Brawl, I don't mind it. I enjoy Rich Swann and Willie Mack working as a tag team. I do think it's interesting when you look at Rich Swann's year. Again, he unified the TNA and Impact World Championships earlier this year, had that match against Kenny Omega at Rebellion. Of course, that was Impact's biggest pay-per-view that they've done since Anthem purchased the company. But since then, he's kind of just sort of disappeared, really. I mean, he lost to W. Morrissey. Now he's been teaming with Willie Mack. Not to huge success, shall we say. And it just feels like his World Championship run was what it was, and now they've kind of moved on and he's back to where he was before. Kind of the Kofi Kingston effect, which feels weird because Impact does kind of have a lack of top stars at the moment. You would think it would be within Impact's best interest to keep Rich Swann around in that top position, even if he's not competing for World Championships, and they kind of have already lost that with the way that he's been booked post-World Championship reign, which is interesting. Nevertheless, the other matches have been announced for this week's Impact. As I mentioned, Rich Swann versus Carl Anderson in a Bunkhouse Brawl. You've got Steve Macklin versus P.T. Williams, Chris Bay versus David Finlay, of course, Chris Bay from the Bullet Club. You've got Knockouts Tag Team Champion Rosemary versus Tasha Steelz, and Moose versus Eddie Edwards, all scheduled to take place on Impact Wrestling this week. We have another match announced for Victory Road, of course, which is on September 18, just about 11 days away. We'll be doing a watch-along and a post-show for that, so don't worry about that one. The X Division Championship match is now official for Impact Wrestling's Victory Road special. The match will see Josh Alexander defend the championship against Chris Sabin. As I mentioned, Josh Alexander defeated Jake Crist on last week's episode of Impact. Alexander did an interview where he said he should be mentioned as one of the greatest X Division champions of all time. Chris Sabin interrupted this and said if Alexander wants to be recognized as one of the greatest of the division, he needs to face the best to ever hold the title. I was expecting AJ Styles to come out, but instead it was Chris Sabin. Alexander then accepted the challenge for Victory Road. So Josh Alexander versus Chris Sabin is going to take place at Victory Road. Should be absolutely fantastic. Josh Alexander's matches that he's been having as part of this whole X Division title reign has been incredible. Let's be honest, Iron Man matches, El Fantasma, Ultimate X matches, open challenges, now against Chris Sabin. Is there anything the man can't do? The answer is no. Josh Alexander is just unbelievable at this point. Absolutely incredible. And I think he is going to be the guy to defeat Christian for that Impact World Championship at Bound for Glory. I really do. I think he's going to be the guy because I look at the roster and I say there shouldn't really be anyone else. There's nobody has the momentum that Josh Alexander does. Previously, I would have said Moose, but Moose's momentum certainly has really sort of dips since he re-signed with the company, which I guess must be very frustrating for him. And finally, some real great news to end on here, and it's an update about former Impact Wrestling commentator Don West. Don West took to Twitter last week to reveal that his cancer is in remission, which is great news, absolutely fantastic news. West announced that after 8 weeks of chemotherapy and 13 treatments of radiation, he's now in remission. He also stated that he can't wait to get back on the radio. West has a radio show with news Radio 560 KPQ in Washington State. The former Impact Wrestling commentator wrote, quote, "I want to give everyone an update. After 8 weeks of chemotherapy and 13 treatments of radiation, my cancer is now in remission. Thank you for everyone's prayers because they truly worked. I look forward to getting back on the radio doing what I love." So absolutely fantastic. Now, back in June, Don West was diagnosed with brain lymphoma. His sister-in-law had launched a GoFundMe campaign that raised over $24,000 of the $40,000 goal. Cody Rhodes, Christopher Daniels, Max Caster, and Vince Russo were just a few who donated to the campaign. So it's absolutely excellent news that Don West is in remission now, and hopefully he has a full road to recovery. I think totally underrated as a commentator, totally underrated. People used to give him stick about his commentary ability, but I always thought he was great. Him and Mike Tenay, they're the OGs of the Impact Wrestling commentary, and I tell you what, I thought they were excellent news. And Don West, by all accounts, is just an all-round great guy. So excellent news that I'm very happy to share. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all these Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings, and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.